record button. And thank you for joining us for the COVIdeo series. I know we got in the room. Let's see if I can get down the list here. It keeps moving on me. Come on. I know we've got Mad River Market, Village Co-op Market of Williamsville, Grand Rapid Food Co-op from Grand Rapids, Michigan, Bay City Food Co-op from Bay City, Michigan, Paso Food Co-op from Paso Robles, California, Fertile Ground from Southeast Raleigh in North Carolina, and I know Assabet Village Co-op Market from Maynard, Massachusetts, Whitewater Grocery Co. from Whitewater, Wisconsin. I see Suncoast, you're not on the list yet, but I know you're in the room. Suncoast Food Co-op from out in California as well. I see Kim here from Market 160. Gosh, I was just getting to that. East Point, Georgia. And who else? Anyone else? I see Chicago Market. Grant Kessler is here from Chicago Market. Anyone else's co-op that I missed before we get started here today? Okay. All right, well, thank you, everyone. And I'm going to share a few slides with y'all very briefly, and then we're going to get into the main presentation. Why is it not showing me the slide it needs to show me? Well, maybe we won't do that. It's not showing me the option I need it to show me. And so this is, of course, there it is, the COVIdeo series. And today we are very lucky to have with us Ray Williams, who is the operations manager at Seward Community Co-op in Minneapolis. He also happens to be a member of the board at FCI, at Food Co-op Initiative. And he has agreed to share his time with us today in between actually running, he's being store manager over one of his stores right now, while one of his managers is out of town, as well as running operations for both stores. So he's going to be talking to us in just a minute. Quick housekeeping, share video if you can, if you're willing. This is going to be a very talkative, interactive session. There aren't going to be a bunch of slides, so we'd especially love to see your face so we can interact. Mute if you can, mute if you're not talking, it really helps. This call is being recorded. Keep that in mind with anything you decide to share. It will be shared publicly. Check-ins are really just the check-in of who's here in the chat because we're expecting so many folks. To participate, first off, keep it focused to the topic as much as you can. We have this very rare opportunity to spend time with Ray about his experience with his co-op, so let's keep it to that topic as much as we can. And use the chat. So I'm going to be managing the chat. Put your questions there. If you know how to use the raise your hand function on here, feel free to do that. If you don't, feel also free to put raising hand in the comments, and that means you would like to actually talk directly to Ray, and I will let you know when he's ready to take some comments. I'll call on you. It kind of helps because even if we just let everybody comment, people quickly don't know what order we're going in and who gets to talk next, and certain voices end up dominating. So please let us know in the comments that you'd like to chat, or just put your question there if you'd like me to share it with. And with that, I'm not going to take up any more time today. I'm just going to introduce again Ray Williams. He's the operations manager at Seward Community Co-op. And so this is an open co-op for many decades. And I'm going to kick off with asking Ray to share a little bit about himself and his role and about Seward Community Co-op. This is not a startup. This is a fully functioning co-op. And Ray's here to share with us about what it's like right now to deal with what's going on with COVID-19 as an established co-op, how they're serving their community, and what lessons they've learned. So I'm gonna stop sharing my screen and turn it over to you, Ray.
All right, thanks a lot, Jackie. Thanks for everyone attending in today. Hopefully I can share some information with you all that will inspire you all as you are working to either start your co-ops or actually have them started and probably in the early stages of them running. Jackie stated, my name is Ray Williams. I'm the operations manager with Seward Community Co-op in Minneapolis, Minnesota. We currently have over 20,000 owners. We've been in business for around roughly close to 50 years. We currently operate 2 grocery stores, one cafe, and within our cafe, at the top of our cafe is our administrative offices. We also house our production kitchen from out of our cafe building as well. And we have roughly around 280 employees. Everyone except for our management staff are part of UFCW 663 union as well. So again, thank you all for joining today. As Jackie said, I'm the operations manager. So in my current role, I have oversight for all operations for all of our business units. So that includes both grocery stores and the cafe. Under my umbrella, I oversee both of our store managers of each one of our stores, our cafe manager, as well as an operations support manager who's responsible for our scanning team, as well as providing support to our operations leaders. Been in the role for going on to be 3 years, October. When I say responsibility for operations, meaning I'm in charge of P&L for the actual two grocery stores and the cafe, as well as work heavily with our human resources manager, dealing with a variety of employee relations issues. I report directly to our general manager. I use the term kind of second in command because I really don't know no other term to describe it, but really provide support to our general manager when our general manager is on leave, support our general manager with any levels of operations that should be done, and as well as work closely, I would say, with our board as well too. So I'm responsible for attending all board meetings and helping our general manager in developing, board reports and responding and updating on all of the executive limitations the board, the general manager is held to. So I believe I'll be talking a little bit today about what Seward Community Co-op is doing during our current COVID-19 crisis. So I just kind of want to share with you all that we have definitely been impacted, and we are attempting to continue to find ways and really how do we show up to be a grocer and be here and support our community in the manner in which we are hailed to, from being a grocery store and just being a cooperative overall. I think our story is a tad bit maybe different than some other co-ops is because we actually had a staff member who tested positive for COVID-19 at one of our business units. And that happened back on March 15th when we were notified. The staff member actually, I believe, we found out through kind of social media that a staff member tested positive as well too. So we were responding in that particular and needing to respond and figure out what are the next steps. And we didn't have a playbook to follow. So it's kind of like we had put out our pandemic plan probably a week or so, 2 weeks ahead of that, which was developed 10 years ago. And we're like, okay, we need to update this. Like, what do we need to do? And then all of a sudden, in the process of pulling it out to begin to get things updated, we had to create one. And that is what we did. And that's what we have been doing, I would say, really, since we have been experiencing the outbreak of COVID-19. So on March 15th, like I stated, it was on a Sunday, I believe, we got notification that one of our staff members tested positive. We'll just kind of give some small details, but I think they're all important to kind of just set up kind of where we're at right now. And if myself, the general manager, our HR manager, and our business unit managers, known as our store managers, all kind of met once we got word and figured out, so what do we do? And we really didn't know what to do. What we did know is that there was one co-op that was out west that had a staff member test positive, and they had actually closed and did a cleaning. So we were like, okay, well, it's probably best for us to close. It's probably the thing. But we still didn't have all the details on what that co-op actually did. But we knew we needed to respond in a matter of time, and we wanted to take it serious. So we actually decided in that particular moment that we were going to close one of our locations with a staff member tested positive at around 5 o'clock, and I think it was around 3 o'clock in that afternoon. So we decided that we were going to close, and we began to draft communication to go out to notify our owners and our staff that someone tested positive. And just to update you all, that staff member is actually doing very fine. They've actually returned to work and so forth. I failed to mention that earlier because hearing that, sometimes you're always wondering, like, are they okay? Yes, the staff member is okay and they're back to work. So I wanted to throw that out there. That we drafted communication and we wanted to notify our owners and our staff that someone tested positive. We were going to close and we were going to do a deep clean. That's all we knew, right? So we drafted communication. We actually sent communication out to our owners first, and I call that out, and I'll come back to that kind of piece and reason why I want to call that out a little bit later. And then we notified our staff that we had this happen. So the owner communication went out a little bit earlier than the actual staff communication did. We notified the staff we'll be closing, and we were going to have a company come in and clean. So we needed to locate a company to come in and actually do the cleaning. So we began to look online, and we actually hired a biohazard company to come in and actually do the cleaning. So the minute we put this out, communication within the community went very fast. The newspapers, the news, everyone is calling us, wanting to know what's going on. We had news reporters showing up at the store, the whole nine. We had a lot of unanswered questions for staff members at this particular point, for community members. What department did this person work in? What was their last day working? Should I go get tested? How did the co-op let this happen? A variety of different things came forward from our community members, and a lot of concern from people as well too. And unfortunately, we didn't have the answers because we had never worked through this before. The questions that a lot of people asked in regards to should they go get tested, what was the exposure? There was a lot of stuff that we just did not have the answers to. So we made the decision to be transparent and communicate, knowing that we did not have a significant amount of answers to the questions that people were going to have, nor did we have identified what was going to be our next step. All things being said, that we closed our actual location for 5 days. It took a very long time for the cleaning company to do some overnight cleaning and for us to come up with a plan on how we wanted to open the store back up. So we decided to keep the store closed for 5 days, which ultimately had a major impact on our financials during that particular time. So prior to March 15th, we had sales were increasing immensely just due to people's concerns and wanting to have groceries in their pantry stocked. But with us closing for 5 days, it definitely did have, I would say, a negative impact from a financial standpoint, at least, on the overall cooperative financials. We decided to open back up after we had completed the cleaning. We had got staff members come in to restock the shelves, get rid of any expired product that may have happened, gone expired during the time in which we were closed, and began to communicate with our community during this time as well too, because we wanted them to feel safe coming back in the store. With that, there was still a significant amount of questions, but one of the things that we were really committed to is communicating on a daily basis, providing some form of update. And we were sending out an update to both our staff and our owners on a daily basis. This is where we're at. This is what we know. But yet again, it prompted a significant amount of questions from a lot of people, and a lot of great questions. A lot of great suggestions came from our community members as well too. However, like I said, not having the experience working through a pandemic before, and I think that is the case for all of us probably on this phone, is that we did not have a plan, and we did not have the best answers, but we were making decisions that were based off of integrity, based off the need to be transparent, and based off the need for us to operate in a grocery store. And now more than ever, our community needs access and need for us to be able to service and be able to provide the services that we provide. So what we've done since that particular time is we're still figuring it out. But I think that we made a significant amount of progress. I think that we have gotten a lot of community support on how we've shown up. And we really were the first within the grocery space to really begin to start doing a lot of things. We really have incorporated 6-foot distancing within the stores, and we have markers on our floor, which really calls out 6 foot, keeping the 6 foot social distancing, really encouraging our staff members to be comfortable with requiring that and speaking to people when they don't have or see people practicing social distancing. We've added plexiglass to our cashier lanes as well too, just to create that barrier and make our cashiers feel more safe, as well as our customers as well too. We have discounted like our self-service coffee and our bulk products. We're now actually pre-packaging our bulk items, so to minimize risk and exposure and things of that nature. We've also increased our sanitization schedules and cleaning consistent schedule, frequently used areas. We've added more sanitization stations within our stores. We are cleaning down our carts after each customer used them. We are also, we discontinued reusable bags at this particular time. That was really a request from our staff members to saying, hey, we can avoid that. We've received a lot of customer comments, I would say, over the last couple of weeks of customers not being happy, or say over the last week with us making that choice, but it was really our desire to really hear the concerns of our staff members and be able to address those if at all possible. We limit our capacity within our stores as well too, to only around, I would say, 35, 40 people at one given time. We have a gatekeeper who is outside the doors and really monitoring the traffic of how many people we have coming in and out. And we're really trying to direct traffic flow within the store as well too. So, if we're seeing our produce department, it's kind of, busy at one time, we may ask the customer that's coming in, hey, can you start down at the meat and seafood department, just because we see kind of some congestion in our produce department. There are a variety of other things that we're doing, but I kind of want to walk through those because more than anything, the priority right now is the safety and health of our staff and customers that are coming to the door. And we don't have all the answers by any means, but when we hear something and we hear our staff members pushing it, or we hear our community members pushing it, it's something that we could bring to fruition, we try to incorporate it because we do want our people shopping at our store to feel safe, and we want our staff to be safe as well too. The amount of interactions that our staff members are having to deal with on a daily basis from a variety of people coming in to the stores is very important, and we're going to try to multiple ways to minimize that. So the safety of our staff is very, very important. What we have seen since we have opened back up is that for sure we were very transparent in the fact that we had a staff member who tested positive. But we have definitely seen that has impacted the sales for this particular store as well too. So we are seeing that there has been a sales decline. We have heard from, our community members that people are not feeling comfortable with coming back into the store. So you say that, hey, we were very transparent. We talked about all the steps that we take, and we've done a variety of different things. One may go to another store and, they're not being transparent, and, it poses at the same level of risk. But, being that we made that decision to be transparent, we do know that it has impacted people's, I would say, trust and people's concerns as it relates to safety. But I say all that to say that we would not do it any other way. If we were to run across the situation again, I cannot say that we would close. Well, I do know for a fact we wouldn't close for 5 days, and I'll talk a little bit our reasons why. If we would take precaution, we'll probably close, do some level of cleaning, but the steps that we went through last time we would not do. But it is important that we did acknowledge it. We were verbal about it, although financially it has had an impact, and we know that it has caused for some people not to want to shop at the store. I do stand strong and firm in the fact that our desire to be transparent and operate with a level of integrity was very important on this time.
I'm surprised to hear that, Ray. I have to say, because you guys were one of the first ones nationally to go through it, and your transparency, it seemed like people responded really well to it pretty quickly. There's a little at the beginning, but then when you took such direct action and were so communicative, I've watched co-ops all over the country copy that level of communication, all the listening to staff and putting things in place. And just as a shopper, I know that you can walk into a lot of grocery stores in my town and just watch the lack of concern for people's safety in action. And it felt like you guys were so on top of that and messaging that you were doing those things. So I guess I'm kind of surprised that you guys haven't kind of come out on top as a store people would trust.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we expected it as well too. What I will say is that week over week, we have seen an increase, and we do see things, moving towards the positive. I mean, in a better direction, but we're still not nowhere near where we anticipated at this particular time. And we would anticipate it, being that we are living through this crisis right now, that it would even be even better than what we had originally anticipated from a budgeting standpoint. But we're definitely not seeing that. We have heard from, we are located in a high East African community here at our Franklin store as well too. We've heard concerns from our East African owners and customers who are really thinking about, hey, what different messaging can we do? How can we partner with some community leaders within the community to kind of just find different ways just to create that level of trust back for our customers and so forth.
And has it not affected the Franklin store then?
The Friendship Store. So this happened at the
Friendship.
Franklin store.
You have it at
Friendship
Franklin,
Store.
right?
Yeah, Friendship Store. We have seen Friendship Store. We see sales growth at the Friendship Store.
Okay.
I think
But
that we could.
specific really to the incident.
Yeah, we still see sales growth at our Friendship Store. However, I think that we could have seen more than what we are seeing now. But we are seeing sales growth at our Friendship Store.
Okay. Well, I'll let you go back to where you were going, Beth. There were a couple questions about that, and so I wanted to call that out. But at a national level, that's hard. It's hard to hear because I know other food co-ops have followed your lead and taken that initiative because you were the one who had to go through it first, and I think have gained a lot of trust through following the exact same practices that you guys have put in place.
Oh yeah, totally. Thanks. Some of the things that we've learned, I would say that what we learned and kind of taken, and again, this is very high level. So we only have an hour, and I want to create the space for questions and so forth. But I will say that there was more stuff that we did, as well. But what we learned is that the financial impact of closing 5 days is something that we cannot do, going forward. We estimate that roughly we lost $500K, due to that particular closure. That includes sales, lost inventory, and other miscellaneous costs that came along with that. One of the things to call out is that our cafe is still fully closed right now, just being that it is a restaurant, and our governor has not allowed for restaurants and stuff to operate at this particular line, so our cafe is still closed. And being that our cafe has been closed until we didn't officially replace those particular staff members out the gate, we were still paying, and we made a commitment to still pay them, just because we did close. So, there's other costs like that and stuff that was added to like the $500,000 throughout. I said communication. Communication should have been with staff first. Like when we did that original communication, we're like, we need to get this out to our owners, and that communication came to staff directly thereafter. But we definitely, received feedback from our staff members that I think is very valid, that communication should have gone out to staff first. With that being said, right now because we were doing daily communication, we're now at a 2-week. We're at a 2 times a week communication, and we do separate owner communication, community communication from our actual staff communication going forward. What we know now is that the governor looks for us to be open. So as we talk about not being able to close, is that we are essential. We have a commitment. The work that we do in providing groceries to people during this time is very important. I know for me personally, working in the grocery industry, it's like, oh yeah, I work in the grocery industry. Yes, I work for a cooperative, great economic model. Yes, I believe in healthy and organic food access for all. And now I'm like going through this, kind of like, wow, like the role that we play in ensuring that people have food to eat and it being so important, it's so great. So we know we're expected to be open, so we got to find ways to be open and ensure that we're being as safe as possible and minimizing risks in the process of being open and providing food to people. What we know now is that many people are not being tested. Most people are being told to self-quarantine. So to me, what does that look like, and how we operate on a daily basis, so as we go back to will we close, I think it's a variety of different factors based off of what the CDC is stating in regards to exposure, when's the last time this person worked, and all of those are good things are things that we all have to consider if we were to be faced with this again. Where before we didn't have any of those parameters in place. We had very little guidance, but we know more now. So it's good to know that we know more now and we can apply those learnings if we were to repeat or come across this situation again. Communities really look for co-ops to respond differently during a time of crisis. And we knew that already. That's the reason why people are so committed to co-ops is that we have different values and food cooperatives in particular than other big box grocers. But living through this COVID-19 breakout right now, it's even more clear that people look for co-ops to respond differently. So what does that mean? It's another layer now, is that we already had a commitment, but now we have a more commitment that we continue to strive to be different, and we continue to strive to show up in a different way than what others are. We know that we need to be able to make adjustments in real time. Operationally, the lay of the land is very different. Our prepared foods, which is a huge margin generator for us, so we make a significant amount of money off our prepared food, is that our prepared food sales are down right now. And it's not because of the product that we sell, it's the fact that people are not feeling comfortable purchasing prepared foods, right? So you add that back to the financial impact that it makes on the organization as a whole. And we have made a personal commitment at this time that we won't go down a path of layoffs. We really want to keep all of our staff employed and find ways to do that. But it is having an impact because our prepared food services are so far down. In our production kitchen that I talked about earlier, we have a area known as grab and go that will prepare the grab and go items for the actual stores to sell. We kind of have that on pause right now just because the volume for our prepared food sales have been extremely down. That being said, we are starting to see increases, so I'm hoping that we will move away from that. But we do know that our prepared foods are down, so how do we adjust to a dramatic change in a particular area that brings forth high volume? So I call out a lesson learned is that we have to be willing in this environment to be willing to adjust in real time and be willing to make decisions that you may not have all of the answers to, and also knowing that you have to be observant during this time. You have to watch I would say the activity of people, how they're moving, what it looks like they're buying, because that information is very important if you want to be successful and be able to continue to provide the things that you
It looks like
need.
questions that are kind of specific to your store, because I would say that in some states, while restaurants have been closed, curbside's been highly encouraged. And it sounds like that's not been the case for you guys. So prepared foods is kind of a different world there. It says, are you guys preparing, are you offering any delivery curbside, with your prepared food or in general?
So with our food overall, so Seward Co-op, we were not, Instacart, anything to that nature, but being that we needed to adjust, we needed to find a way to be able to get food out to people. So we just now have our own curbside pickup that we started on April 7th. So it's something we built the system in-house, things of that particular nature. And that started on April 7th. We rolled it out with a soft launch and really targeting towards people with compromised immune systems. So really encouraging people who use curbside to be those that fall under that particular category. However, we're not policing that whatsoever. That being said, is that on May 12th, we open that up for everyone. So that is going to be a way for us to continue to address access for people. In regards to our cafe, after that, we will look into doing some curbside pickup for our cafe as well to our restaurant, because right now we're not utilizing that space at all. We just chose to redeploy those cafe staff into our stores to be able to assist in our front end, things of that particular nature, because staffing with our it's a smaller cafe, but staffing a cafe to be able to do random curbside pickups, it's just not fun. It doesn't financially make sense, and we've chosen to hold off on that. But we do plan on moving into that after we roll out the larger curbside pickup on May 12th.
So someone is asking about the nonprofit aspect. Food co-ops are not nonprofits under their state statutes. They are cooperatives. There's occasional exceptions in states that don't have a cooperative statute, but the vast majority, and definitely Minnesota is called jokingly the food co-op capital of the United States. They are definitely organized under the co-op statute. So you guys aren't currently accepting donations or anything like that to support your efforts.
No, so we are not currently accepting donations. What we did do is that, so we recently applied for the PPP Payment Protection Plan. We got approved for that. Prior to that, we were really just being transparent with our owners, our board members. We had a community forum as well, too, to kind of say, hey, this is the lay of the land. If we don't get this PPP loan, if we don't see sales increase, we're definitely going to have to look at possibly doing layoffs, which is going to be, major. There's opportunities for you owners to invest, and you want to make an investment to the co-op. Now is a great time, and we've had so many owners step up to the plate right now saying, hey, I got this little extra money on hand. I'm willing to invest into the co-op. So that has been very, very successful. So right now, I mean, we're doing like a capital campaign just to get owners to do some reinvestments, which has been
Nice.
very helpful as well. Yeah.
So that's an interesting balance and response that I kind of want to call out to folks is that, sales are down and there's some trust issues that we're trying to rebuild through transparency, but also the owners who get it are actually looking for ways to step up. And so there's kind of this balance going on. Am I hearing you right?
Yes, totally. I mean, we have a significant amount of owners who, and I wish I would have wrote down the number. I want to believe that since we announced back at our March board meeting, which is the last Tuesday of the month, so over a month, we've sent out, I believe, 80 packets to owners who are looking to make investments, and we've already closed some of those.
Nice, excellent. And even when you guys sent those out, people weren't sure that this was going to be what it is, and
Correct.
people are still coming through.
Correct. No, when we sent them out, people knew what it was. That's when we had announced like a level of transparency. That, hey, us closing for 5 days, it had an impact.
Okay.
We're not getting the margin dollars from our prepared foods right now. Like, hey, it's kind of, we're concerned, and so forth. So we were very transparent at that time, and that's when owners were like, hey, we're stepping to the plate. This is our co-op, and we wanna invest. So that has been great.
That's very cool. I didn't mean to cut off were there other lessons learned you wanted to share? Otherwise, I'm gonna open up for questions.
Sure. What we have seen as well too, just to call out during this time, is that we have seen what we consider is kind of be like misconduct from like our customers. So we are seeing a lot of, we have really balanced here at one of our locations, our Franklin store, which is a store that we closed for COVID-19. We started CC last year. Drug usage within the bathroom, opioids, people experiencing homelessness, as well too, hanging out, at the co-op, as well as an increase in like solicitations and things of that nature. We really work to kind of like really balance what is our community response. How do we still run and operate a business, as well too. And I feel like we made a lot of headway last year. But we have seen since the COVID crisis is going on now, we have just seen an increase in that, that activity starting back up as well. So I'm just throwing it out there, not necessarily as a lesson learned, but I'm just throwing out like this is reality. And, it's kind of hard when I'm, had a conversation with, one gentleman, and I'm like, yo, you can't do that. He's like, well, what do you want me to do? And, it's hard not to have a response because we know the times in which we are living in. So I just call it out to stay on top of just the operational. How do we be effective? How do we keep sales going and things of that nature? There's that layer that co-ops play and how people look for co-ops to be different. That just doesn't resonate with the owners and the people that shop at the co-op. It really resonates with someone who probably never even set their foot in the door, but they still know it's a co-op, and that expectation of how co-op is not dimmed during this particular time. It's actually heightened, and people rely on co-ops to be there even more, I think, during these particular times. Again, safety of the staff is our top priority. Have here, just from my notes, there's not a perfect written manual on how to deal with the pandemic. So I say, the encouragement for you all is start thinking about this, start thinking about it sooner than later. You will definitely have to adjust the plan if there was something else in the future, but at least begin to start taking what you're hearing, what's happening now, and keeping that in mind as you are working to open your own cooperatives. And for those of you who already have your cooperatives open, and just like, hey, we're still just in early stages, start, implementing some of these suggestions I threw out around just ways to keep your store safe, because that's what people want more than anything. And then I think that's about it for now. And I'll open up for questions, and if there's something I missed, I can go back.
We'll start throwing your questions in the chat. I'm going to throw out there something you said, Ray, that I think would really stick out to startups. I'd love to have you talk about for a minute longer. So the startups, the owners find out everything first. The site, you have to tell your owners first when you announce the site, where you're communicating to your owners and then your community. You said, we didn't communicate to staff first. We should have done that before owners, and kind of, that makes sense that staff wanted that. And you kind of moved past that point. And I think as operators, we both understand that, but maybe you could help folks understand why the staff would come before the owners. Because that's a flip for startup folks. They're not used to that, and how that plays out.
Yeah, I think that it is important because the staff are the ones, who in our eyes, who may have had the most contact and exposure with this particular individual. And if we talk about safety and health, I think one of the things that we have to be willing to find ways to minimize the level of anxiety or emotional response that may come from this particular information. And for me, it just really sucks to hear from someone else that someone at your particular job may have tested positive for COVID-19, and it's at the location that you work at, possibly someone that you may work with closely on a daily basis. Like it's just not cool. So we really, in a level of priority, we really thought to kind of say, hey, let us really focus on getting communication out to our staff first. And our owner's communication is coming directly thereafter, but it is important for us to get that information out to our owners first. So hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, no, it does. I want to point that out to folks that with other stuff too, it'll feel like a really weird flip when you open your stores. The staff actually has to know first, because then they have to answer owner questions, and so even if it weren't their health on the line, they get blindsided. And so you have to come up with systems to let staff know just before owners. And then of course, in this case, the staff needs to know first because it was their health on the line.
Yeah.
But
I'm just saying, Jackie, you bring out a good piece, is that Dr. The staff are the spokespeople for the co-op. So, we, like I said, 280 employees or so, that's 280 spokespeople for the co-op, and the staff want the tools to be able to speak when they are coming forward. Because what we found more than anything is that, unfortunately, during these times, and I think that we've all been guilty of it in one way or another, is that we have sometimes anxiety tied to the times in which we're living in, or maybe an emotional response or so forth. And our staff have taken the brunt of that. They've taken it from our owners, or people wanted to be like, how dare the co-op, they should have done more, and so forth. But our staff have stood firm and stood strong during these times. And I think that they definitely need the tools and the communication pieces in order to have those tough conversations with community members.
There was let's see, testing. I was wanting to talk about this, and I think you spoke to this, but I think let's call this out a little more. I said, no, your testing wasn't real available in the beginning, but now are you planning to do more testing of your staff going forward? And I think you have very little control there. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, I mean, the testing is really up to the doctors, so, we have those conversations all the time where, we maybe have a staff member call in. It's like, hey, I'm calling in today because I feel like one of these symptoms, should I come in? Our response is like, we strongly encourage you not to come in. And two, you need to contact the doctor. You have to rely on what the doctor is helping you to do. We are not medical professionals by any means, and therefore we can't direct that. I know that their plan is to continue to increase access to testing, but testing is still not just being offered to everyone at this particular time. Most doctors are suggesting that people do a 14-day quarantine, and they do 14-day quarantine. They haven't been at work in 14 days. Say, for instance, they do get tested on day 12. They do test positive, 2 days later, that's 14. Are they able to return back to work according to the doctor? That's a question. The CDC states that the virus lives on surfaces for so long, it stays in the air for this long. So it's all of these kind of a puzzle piece that you got to kind of work through now, based off of if someone does test positive, based off of when they got the test, when's the last time they've been at work, and all that other good stuff to determine what your next steps may be.
Something you mentioned is in working to rebuild trust in the community and looking for partnerships right now in the midst of all this to help do some of that, to be seen as someone who's serving the community and partnering with them. Can you talk a little bit about what you guys are thinking about, or how that came about?
Sure. One of the examples I gave earlier, and I'll probably just go back to that one, is that we at our Franklin store where the staff member tested positive for, we're at a large East African community, and some of our staff members have had conversations with community members who are from East Africa, and they've talked about their concern, as well as their neighbors and family members' concern and a lot of them not wanting to return back to the co-op because of it. So with that being said, we have reached out to some of our local representatives, to our community leaders within the East African community to figure out how can we partner, what can we do from a communication standpoint to talk about these safety measures we put in place. How can we just keep that door of communication open as well too? Because like I said, it's a huge community here where we're located, and we want to ensure that we just keep that relationship and that trust, moving forward.
Absolutely. Other comments and questions from folks for Ray? I would say one thing that's come with some co-ops, I don't know if you guys have run into this, that some farmers and producers are also hurting and looking for unique ways to help them keep moving product or partnering with them differently. Has that something that Seward's been able to do and pivot on, or has there not been so much demand for that?
There has not been. What we have found though is that, so we do an annual CSA fair. We're really highlighting our CSA producers, and we have a fair at one of our stores, a Franklin store. It's a good time for CSA farmers to get exposure and things of that particular nature. So we do it in April of each year, and we were not able to do it this year because of social distancing and things of that nature. However, we did take our CSA fair and did it virtual because we were committed to not just canceling it. It's more important now than ever is that we bring forth this exposure and people have the opportunity, because our people are, hello?
Yep, there you are.
Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah.
You jumped.
People are can really use it more than ever. So we took the fair that we would do that was in person, we took it to be virtual so that we could still, give people exposure.
Excellent. Okay. Other comments, questions on the real life operations of co-op grocery store in the midst of all this?
Hey, this is Kim. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good. Last time you couldn't. Just
Quiet, but we can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, so I'm curious, and I posted this. I'm curious about a couple of things. First of all, let me just say this has been great to kind of get your insight on dealing with what could be a crisis, no matter whether it's something everyone's experiencing or something unique to your store.
Mm-hmm.
And this that I'm curious about is sort of beyond that. What would you do that you either initiated because of the pandemic as either a service, for example, your curbside that you said kind of has emerged because there's more of a demand for that? Is that something you think you'll continue, or is there anything else that you weren't doing before that you might say, oh, this actually works for the other end?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I think the curbside is definitely one that we will continue for sure. Like, it is not a reason for us not to. I think another as well too, when I talked about some of those safety measures that we've added in the store, like encouraging social distancing, the plexiglass is at the cashier lanes and things of that particular nature. I don't see those going away anytime soon. I think that what's happening right now is creating the new norm. And, I think it has been a struggle for people to adjust to, say, for example, the social distancing and like trying to allow that 6 feet. I remember when we were really pushing it and first start talking about it, like you'll be in the store and you're like, okay, people are not feeling the 6 foot distancing thing, like not at all. Last Friday, I was in both of our stores and visited both of our stores. And my feedback that I had after I left each store was that, wow, our customers are now like they're living social distancing right now. So I think a lot of I think a lot of the norms that we are setting up from a safety standpoint, people are going to it's going to become part of our daily activities, how we socialize ourselves and so forth. So I don't see any of those things going away either. I do think what we've done to keep communication going with our owners and really finding ways to, bring owners in from a virtual standpoint, which we did for our board meeting back the last 2 months. I think that we will use some of our communication mechanisms that we're using now as ways to continue to engage and keep our owners informed going forward as well.
That's a great question.
Okay, so I have another question because you mentioned more than once about the East African community that you're serving.
Uh-huh.
So I'm curious because, I think there are lots of communities that may have like a pocket of a certain type of whatever. I mean, it could be anything, people with disabilities. And I'm wondering, do you have a person from that community on your board? How have you, do you seem to have an understanding of their needs? I'm just curious where that comes from.
Yeah, so we do have so we're blessed because I will say for the community in which we reside in our Franklin store, I talked about our East African customers, but we also have a significant amount of East African staff as well too, and they have been around for a very long time, so they have been that communication piece with helping us, in that realm. As it relates to our board, we do not have anyone on our board currently that identifies as East African, but we do have a very, very diverse board right now. Our whole executive team are all women of color. So, I mean, the diversity and exposure and skill and variety of different backgrounds and stuff from our board is actually fairly good right now. So yeah, hopefully that answers your question.
We had kind of a more operational question, I know you might not have too much more time. I know Ray may not be able to stay for the full hour, so but there was
I'm actually good, Jackie.
Oh, good. Okay.
Good.
How is this going to affect insurance? Are you guys going to be needing additional liability insurance? Like, what's going to happen with that going forward as grocery stores?
Well, at this point, I don't know how it is going to impact, I would say, from an insurance standpoint, because one, we know that this is a pandemic. Everyone across the board cannot get, if there's inventory that was lost, things of that particular nature, like it's kind of like lost, there's no insurance out there that's covering that due to the fact of, I believe, this being considered under the insurance clause of the Act of God. So there's nothing that can happen. I think one of the things that we'll keep our eye out on is that we talk about, if we were to go down a path of needing to do layoffs, or being that we have staff member who's just like, hey, I just cannot operate in this space. I'm afraid. I don't want to come work today. I'm going to put myself in too much exposure, and they decide to resign. Some of those staff members will be applying for unemployment and things of that nature. So with the amount of unemployment that may come through, will that impact our unemployment and things of that particular nature? But I don't see operationally from an insurance standpoint, I don't see anything at the gate right now that would impact insurance. But you never know, things are unfolding on a daily basis.
Yeah. Anyone else who wants to ask a question or unmute? We've got time, a couple more minutes with Ray here. So some people don't like to throw it in the comments, so if you want to unmute. Okay. If no one's gonna unmute, Phil, go ahead and throw things in the comments if you want. Can you speak to just for a second? You can sound like there's a different level of expectation that the community has from a co-op, and that we know that. But actually, as people who don't operate co-ops yet, I think sometimes a lot of people in the startup world don't know how that's going to play out, and it's a big thing. Seward, maybe more than most co-ops, have experienced it very intensely. Can you talk about that level of expectation to both function as a business, but to meet these really high standards?
Yeah. It's kind of, I come from, I've been co-op for about 4.5 years, and my background is from a corporate setting. So coming over to cooperatives, it was actually very different, from the standpoint of, you are a community resource and people look for you as such. And, you sell groceries, at least if you're a food cooperative, we sell groceries. But the community looks for us to be able to expand in different ways to not only sell groceries, but just to be that community resource through different avenues. So as one example I'll give is our kind of seed roundup program that we do for a local organization once a month. We average bringing in around $26,000 a month from roundups from our actual customers. Like, it's something that the community expect for us to look for different avenues to utilize this as a vehicle in order to get that out. I talk about, our response to, the increase in drug uses with some of our bathrooms, and, like people experiencing homelessness, hanging out around our facilities, and the increase in solicitation and things of that particular nature. When I say solicitation, from, asking for money or things of that nature at our places. We can't go in and just be like, yo, we're a business, let's call the police on these people, We have to come from a place of compassion, come from a place of empathy. How do you balance that with, we still need to run a business as well too. And I think it comes from having open dialogue and communication with our owners, to say, hey, you may see it, calling it out, you may have seen this increase. And yet, this is the approach that we're taking, bringing in more signage, just bringing in that human component that sometimes can get missed or be perceived as being missed when you're operating a business. And the focus is strictly on the bottom line. Co-ops are called to be different than what other businesses, how other businesses may operate.
Well, on that tension, I wonder if you've come up with a solicitation. I know my experience was there's a tension between the expectations of the co-op morally and staff feeling safe, as well as trying to operate a business. That you kind of now you have these morals to meet for your owners, but you have this real sudden new level of responsibility to staff that and their wants and needs might be at opposition with owners at times. I wonder if you talk about that at all.
Their wants and needs may be different than owners. You may find that there are staff that's like, oh my God, I have safety concerns, and this is unacceptable. And you may find some staff that's like, no, we should give them food and we should do X, Y, Z. So you have that dynamic tension amongst the various levels within the particular levels or groups that are there. And it's hard to maneuver through at times. It's very complex. But you find a way, and I always encourage people to walk into any situation with a high level of integrity and a mission to do, what you feel is right based off the information that you have.
I wanted to point out one thing too, I haven't been tooting your horn too much, but Seward's also really led in several ways. I think you were one of the first businesses in Minneapolis when you opened your restaurant to not allow tipping and instead have a high flat pay. Can you talk about some of those things that Seward has done that have created impact?
Sure. Yes, we were the first in the Twin Cities to, from a restaurant standpoint, we paid a livable wage, and we did not allow for our counter staff or wait staff to receive tips just because of the paid benefits that we offer to our particular staff. Seward has also, as I talk about our CSA fair, really creating that space annually for our farmers to be able to come out and show, what they have to people and really be able to build those relationships. We talk about 15 Now was a big thing here in Minneapolis, and Seward went out and endorsed the 15 Now. Endorsed 15 Now prior to it being mandated and being approved, which was pretty cool. Seward also, there was talks about a 5-cent bag charge as well too, and we moved forward with implementing the 5-cent bag charge last year prior to it not being mandatory from a city standpoint as well too. So again, it's all of these various things that we try to take in and begin to lead the way. And although I talk about this, how we responded to COVID-19 and some of the challenges that we've had, because it definitely has been a first, and I think it's challenged all of us. I'm still very proud of the work that Seward has done. Not just because I work here, but we have been a leader within a cooperative space, and I would say highly recognized nationally for the work that we have done and kind of leading the way from a variety of different spaces. So although we have been attempting to work through how do we respond during this time, I'm still very much proud to come to work each day because we do great work. And again, we do it based off of what we consider to be doing the right thing.
I do see your question, so I want to check in. We usually wrap up about now, so this would be our last question, and it relates to livable wage. Is there anything else that folks wanted to get in, though, because we only have a couple more minutes of race? I just want to make sure we have any other topics, because this gets a little into the weeds, and it is something we could answer off, but if there are any other questions, we'll go for it. Okay. Jim would like to know about how you guys determined livable wage.
So a livable wage was, we worked our livable wage based off of what the city of Minneapolis had determined was the livable wage in order to live off of. What that being said is that now since we adopted a livable wage model some years ago, but when our staff voted to unionize back in 2000 and we signed our first contract back in 2018, now we have a wage scale model that is in place that's negotiated between the union and management. That being said, the $15 now is still a mandate regardless on if you're union or non-unionized. So the way the wage scale and structure was set up when we did that back in 2018 is really begin to get us moving down a trajectory so before we can hit the $15, I think, by 2022.
I am going to wrap us up here because I do want to get us out at the top of the hour, and I want us to thank Ray, and I want to let you guys know about the sessions that are coming up, so please don't walk out yet. Let's first thank Ray. If you want to just shake
Thank
the
you.
hands, whatever you want to do. Thank you so
Hey.
much. I can't
No problem.
believe he actually, I was kind of expecting him to cancel because I know how operations are right now.
No. I had it there.
So we're deeply grateful to Ray. And real quick, I just want to let you guys know we got more sessions coming up this week. Thursday, you do not want to miss the session with Don Moffitt. None of the sessions are the ones you want to miss, but he's doing a session on how he thinks this is, and he's, you know, looking in the crystal ball. We don't know everything, but how he thinks this is going to impact trying to get real estate negotiations, lending, and getting money. He's going to take a really in-depth look at how it might affect feasibility on a business level going down the road. And he has some really interesting thoughts that it wouldn't have occurred to me because of his background in certain areas like real estate. So he's going to be here sharing those on Thursday. And then on Friday, for those of you who are doing outreach, we're having the Outreach Confidential with Katie Novak. And that is a discussion group. You're going to come and say, hey, here's my co-op, and here's what we're doing on outreach. Here's what's not working. Here's what's working. You're going to share notes. It's really for people who are in the trenches of outreach to come and learn from each other, share notes, and honestly get a little therapy. So please join us for that on Friday. The following week, I'm very excited. We're just doing promotions out. We got a couple of peer presentations that are going to be phenomenal. Kim, who's with us today from Market 166, is going to be talking about how to run an owner call campaign and check in that owners are okay, connect them to resources, and show them the co-op is, is specifically there for them in a way that doesn't have to drain your whole organization to get it done. And with those who don't have a community organizing background who are doing this, it can sound overwhelming. Kim's got a background in doing this, and she's going to talk us through how to be ready and how to do it. And we also are going to have Philip here, who's also with us today from Mad River, talking about, hey, we decided it was more than ever time to look at what happens if the board chair is suddenly gone, and what do we have to have, what does everyone have to have passwords to, what's got to be lined up, who's going to have access to what, not just who's going to fill the chair, but what happens to the organization if the key players disappear? Because, we're kind of in a scary time. They did that work, and he's going to share that work with you, and we're going to talk about that. So some great stuff coming up. Thank you, everyone, for coming out and sharing your time with us, and I hope to see you Thursday. Thanks again to Ray.
Bye-bye.
Have a great day, everyone.